All right. I think I am live. Hi, everyone. Still figuring out all the technical stuff. I hope you can hear me. Hey, chat, if you can just let me know real quick on the chat if you can hear me. Hey, AWS Geeks TN, you're here again. Dora, nice to see you. While you give me feedback if you can hear me or if I'm on mute, I'm gonna pull up my screen real quick. Let me see. Share screen. Window, which one is it? This one. Here we go. All right, sharing my screen. It should be up here now. Okay, that's my screen. So got everything here. Cloud9's running. It's probably gonna lock me out in a minute because my session's running out, but that doesn't matter. I'll just log back in once that happens. Okay, cool. So, hey, Rehan, thank you for the feedback. Thanks, you can hear me now. So, I'm Dennis. Let me take down that screen share again real quick. So, hey, my name is Dennis. I'm a developer advocate with Amazon Web Services. And I can see there are already a few people in the chat. Hey, Mariam, nice to see you. I'm streaming this on YouTube, Twitch, and LinkedIn. Please join the chat if you want. This is going to be a fun session where we all are going to learn a lot. What I'm doing here today and what I have been doing in the last couple of streams is pretty new to me as well. So this is an opportunity for you to learn, but this is also an opportunity for me to learn. And you look over my shoulder to see how I approach things to basically build things on AWS. Cool. So what I'm going to do is continue building the application that we started with. However, I thought about what actually I want to build, because in the beginning, to set everything up, I didn't have a specific application in mind. I just set up some moving parts to get everything running. And today, I'm going to talk about a little bit what the application is supposed to do, or at least the start of the application is supposed to do. And then we're going to go from there. Just to start real quick, I will that's the wrong screen. I will okay, give me 1 second. Here we go. All right. So I'll pull up the screen real quick. Here we go. So, and let me see if you can see my painting on the screen. So no, you can't, because I'm not sharing I'm only sharing the browser, so the painting won't work. But that doesn't matter for now. What we have, just real quick, what we've built last time, we have a bucket, an S3 bucket, an Amazon Simple Storage Service bucket. And whenever we upload something into that bucket, that fires an event. And this event is being picked up by an event rule. And this event rule then triggers a step function state machine. And that's all we have right now. We have this bucket. We have the event rule that fires whenever there's a new file in the bucket, whenever we have a put object API call, to be specific. And whenever that happens, it will then execute a step function. And what I've done today before starting the stream is basically rebuild the whole application that we built last time to reflect what it really is about. And this is what I'm going to talk about now. So I think, yeah, you should be able to see my browser. And I'm going to open this tab. This is my YouTube channel. Or rather, this is the statistics of my YouTube channel. As you can see, right around April, March 31st, no, April 1st. Yeah, I started uploading videos to my channel on April 1st. So that's a couple months ago. And as you can see, if I scroll down, there are lots of videos that I have uploaded since then. Some of those were my exam practice questions. Some of those are videos where I explain things. And some of those are live videos, like, for instance, the recent Like I can't find it. Oh, here we've got one. Here we've got Building Life on AWS episode 1 from a few weeks ago. So this is my YouTube statistics. And what I want to do is each month, because putting stuff on YouTube is part of my job. And I want to report to my team and to my manager what I did on YouTube. And to do that, I want to aggregate the statistics that I get from YouTube into something that then helps me create a report for my team and for my manager. And this is what I'm going to be working on. So this application will be an application where I upload data. Whenever I upload data, something, well, my application is supposed to process the data and do something with it, produce an output, store it in a database, create a report. So what I'm essentially doing here as a use case is something that happens very often in many different use cases where some data is being uploaded, and whenever data is being uploaded, a process should be kicked off, and this process should process the data, work with the data, and do something with it downstream. In many application and many types of industries, you have that situation, be it uploading an image that needs to be transformed or uploading data that needs to be processed into a database. Very often, in the past, we used to have batch jobs that ran maybe every day. So files have been uploaded to a disk or to a bucket throughout the day, and at some point in the day, you have a batch job that then picks all the new files, processes them, and does that every day all over and over again. But what we do with an event-driven application, this is what we're building here, we won't wait and have a cron job, basically a job that runs once a day, to figure out if there are any new files and if there are any, process them. What we're going to do is just whenever something gets uploaded, trigger the process, make sure that the file gets processed downstream. And as I said, the example here really is, for now at least, something simple. Well, simple. So my YouTube statistics, and we probably have to look into what they look like. So what I did, let me go back to Cloud9, and for everyone who hasn't had the chance, Milad, good to see you. Hey, nice to have you on the stream. For everyone who wasn't here before, who doesn't know, Cloud9, AWS Cloud9 basically is an IDE, an integrated development environment in the cloud. In AWS, it essentially runs on an EC2 instance, and it has all the permissions in my account that I, as the logged in user, have. So I'm logged in, if you look up here, I'm logged in as Dennis on this account, and I have certain permissions, and the Cloud9 instance that I'm running has the same permissions. So from here, I'm able to call the API, to use the CLI, but also to deploy stacks using the AWS CDK. And this here, let me pull that down a little bit. This here is the CDK stack that we've built throughout the last 2 episodes. This stack does a couple of things, and I've renamed everything. So now it's a video stats stack and so forth. This stack does a couple of things. It creates a bucket, an S3 bucket, and this is going to be the bucket to upload all our files. And it also creates an application trail, which is a CloudTrail trail, and this trail has a specific S3 event selector. And this S3 event selector basically says, I want the trail to monitor this bucket. And whenever a write operation happens inside of this bucket, so somebody uploads something, somebody deletes something, somebody uploads a new version of something, whenever that happens, I want that to be monitored and put in a trail. And so that's the CloudTrail trail. A little further down here, you can see we've got a state machine, This is an AWS step function state machine that I want to be triggered. And right now, that doesn't do very much. Let me see. All the stuff down here is not so important. If you look at this, everything we do really is we have a pass state. A pass state basically is a placeholder. It doesn't do anything. It just takes the input and delivers it through the output. So the state machine that we have right now is really very simple. It is just a placeholder. There is no processing in place right now. We will add a Lambda function, and we will add a few more mechanisms to figure out what file has been uploaded, which Lambda function should be run, and so forth. But for now, it has just a pass state. And I can show you that here. If we look into it, into the definition, this here really is all it does right now. The function starts, it has a placeholder, and it ends. And that's about it. It doesn't do anything else. So that's really simple. The rest here is a little more configuration for the state machine, because I want it to be an express state machine, which is really lightweight, because I don't need it to run very long. Standard state machines on AWS step functions can run up to a year, up to 365 days. And they're pretty heavyweight because they use a lot of persistence in the background and everything. But for this case, we only need express state machines. They run up to 5 minutes. And I expect the processing to be done after the 5 minutes. So I use an express state machine, and I added some log options so that the state machine basically is able to log into an actual log on CloudWatch, into an actual CloudWatch log. That's that. Here we go. And then we have another thing down here, and this is our put object rule. That is an event rule. And event rules, they're in a service called AWS Event Bridge. And these event rules listen to the event bus, and whenever a specific event happens that matches the pattern that is defined in here, this rule does something. It sends the event to its list of targets, and we have our state machine as a target for the event rule. So just to go back, we've got our bucket. This is the bucket. And whenever CloudTrail, the event selector, picks up a write event in the bucket, an event rule will be evaluated, and that tries to figure out, was it an actual put object event? So we're going to ignore all delete object event and other write events. We are only interested in put object events. So when something new is being uploaded, whenever something is being put to the bucket, then this rule triggers this state machine. And just real quick, in AWS, this is what it looks like. We do have our bucket. We have our video stats stack data bucket. This is this one. And I already uploaded something to here. I'm going to delete it. I just did that to test. Permanently delete. Copy, paste, delete objects. Here we go. Close. So we have the bucket. We have, let me see, we have, if we look into CloudTrail, we have this specific video stats stack application trail. This is the trail that monitors all of our data events, all of the write events on our bucket. Then we have Event Bridge. Amazon Event Bridge. And in here, we have an event rule. This is our this one. This is the important one. Video stat stack new object has been uploaded. This is the event rule with that pattern. So it looks at the bucket name, Is it the bucket that we're looking for? It looks at the event name. And whenever that happens, it sends the event to the state machine, which we can find here. This is our state machine. And you saw that before. It has a start, it has a placeholder, and it has an end. And now let me have a look at the chat real quick. So do you need to specify CloudTrail to publish to EventBridge so that the rule can work? I'll put the question up on the screen real quick. In this case, I do, because the following, looking at CloudTrail. Usually, CloudTrail only picks up, and I'll go to the event history. Usually, CloudTrail only picks up management events. It does not store data events. A management event is create a new bucket, or launch an EC2 instance, or create a step function. These are management events, or delete a resource, modify a resource, create a user. These all are management events, and CloudTrail automatically monitors all of those. But CloudTrail does not automatically monitor data events. And data events are uploads to S3, read access to S3, but also, for instance, invocations of Lambda functions. Because imagine you have an application, and this application, you have a web application hosting a static website on your S3 bucket, and millions of users, excuse me, millions of users are accessing the data per minute, maybe even on Black Friday. Let's say it's a shop and they access your product pages millions of times per minute. And if all those read access requests, if all those would be logged, it would clog up your log. And this is or Lambda function invocations, for example. You could have a Lambda function that fires a million times a minute because it does something with a request or whatnot. And you don't necessarily want all that information in your CloudTrail. So automatically, CloudTrail does not log the data events. It only logs the management events. But if you have an application where say you are interested in data events inside of a specific bucket, or you are interested in invocations, executions of a specific Lambda function, you can specifically create a trail with a data selector, and that's what we did here. If you look up here, we have where is it? The trail. We have an S3 event selector, and this selector basically says, in addition to the management events that are being logged anyway, that are being monitored anyway, I also want to monitor the data events, but only for this bucket and only the write events, for instance, just to make sure that I don't have a lot of noise that I don't need, and I only really have the data events that I'm really interested in. I hope that answers your question. Now let's see another question, Milad. Here, is this similar to when we activate put event for S3 bucket to trigger a Lambda? It is similar. One important distinction here is, and what you're talking about, Milad, let me do that real quick so you can see my face. What you're talking about, Milad, I think is the event notification inside of a bucket, which is down here, the event notifications. So you can create event notifications inside of a bucket, and that's the easiest way, so you don't need CloudTrail. However, event notifications, and I'll open, oh, my session has expired. I need to log in real quick. Give me 1 second. Here we go. Just 1 second. Got to do my SSO dance. All right. Now I'm going to reload this. All right, here we go. So when I create an S3 event notification down here, you see I only have 3 types of destinations available. I only have Lambda functions, SNS topics, and SQS queues. However, I want to trigger a step function. So there's two ways to do this. I could have this trigger a Lambda function that then executes a step function state machine, or I go the other way around. Let's go back. I go the other way around and have CloudTrail monitor the bucket, and then I can work with event rules. And to be honest, I like the second approach better because pretty much all your event-based integration inside of AWS will go through EventBridge. So all the event-based application integration uses EventBridge. And in this case, it really makes sense to do it when you monitor your S3 buckets as well, because then all the automation uses the exact same mechanism through EventBridge using event rules, which then can trigger all kinds of things. So the bucket, the S3 event notification, you can use that, but it's a different mechanism from the event rule. And I prefer using event rules because this is the standard way, the recommended way to do your event-based integration. I think event notifications have been around before we actually introduced event rules. So this is an older way of doing this. And the default way nowadays really is to go through EventBridge. So let me see. Okay, all right. Back to that question, thanks. But I mean, how does the events from CloudTrail get to the EventBridge? I didn't see that in the CDK. Okay, so that's an important question. When you have a trail like this one, let's look into it. When you have a trail, every CloudTrail, you cannot configure that. Every CloudTrail automatically puts all of its events onto the default bus in EventBridge. Let's have a look at EventBridge again real quick. And in the past, if you've worked with AWS for a while, you may remember CloudWatch event rules. And that's exactly what that is. EventBridge has event buses, and every account has a default event bus. This is just there. And this is the bus where CloudTrail automatically puts every monitored event onto the default bus. You can create additional buses for application integration if you want your application to send events through EventBridge, or you may have a third-party application that sends events through EventBus. That very often goes through through custom buses, but all CloudTrail events always go into the default bus. You don't have to configure that. One thing that Milad says here, back to triggering a Lambda function to then trigger a step function. Yes, that would add an additional. It's a tiny amount. It's a tiny amount because you can execute millions of Lambda functions for just a few cents. However, it introduces cost. That's right. Okay, cool. So, Jonathan, good to see you, Jonathan. Thanks for joining. Let me have a look at your question real quick. Okay, all right, good. Perhaps controversial opinion, and this is a good one. Thank you for that. Perhaps controversial opinion. As a DevOps, letting developers manage the setup of CloudTrail, even a dedicated trail, feels like a real anti-pattern. CloudTrail is mine, an audit tool, and not devs. Okay, good. Very good point, because the CloudTrail that you use for auditing should not ever be touched by any user of the account. This should be managed by the platform team. And if you look into mine real quick, oh, it didn't work. If you look into mine real quick, I have something like that in my account as well. Here, we've got this trail. And this is the trail because I work at AWS and I provisioned this account through AWS, but the AWS platform team makes sure that every account from every user inside of AWS, so not you as a customer, but I as an employee, has a trail. And this is the audit trail. This is the one that I'm not supposed to touch. And even if I tried, I couldn't change anything because I'm sure there is an SCP, a service control policy, that makes sure that I cannot do anything with that. And this is owned by the platform team. This one is not an audit trail. This is a data or an application trail where I say I want to specifically monitor data events in a specific bucket that belongs to my application. And this is the reason why I, as a developer in this case, why I deliberately use the Service Cloud trail in order to create a data trail. This is not an audit trail. This is not for auditing my account. This is not for having insight into what happens in my account, because this is done by the platform team. They take care of that. I'm using the same service, but for a trail that is specific to my application. And this is the reason why I use that. To be able to monitor API activity, data activity, you need to use CloudTrail. And that's the service for that. I don't think it would make much sense to have another service that would do the same thing, but for the developer, so that there's there are no issues between developers and the platform team. There is a platform team. This platform team noted this. Do not delete. And I should not even try, because probably if I try, there will be something flagged somewhere and somebody's going to call me and ask me, why did you try deleting the audit trail? And I've got my own, which is down here. I don't touch that. I don't care about that. I only have this one. Does that make sense? Cool. Great. Thanks for the question. This is a very good question, because this is something that many teams struggle with. Who is responsible for what? Who can touch what? And the important thing here really is the platform team is important for this one, for the audit trail. And if I look into that, I would be able to see that this monitors all the management events, everything that happens inside of my account, but it does not monitor data events, because they're not interested in if somebody reads something from a bucket. They're interested in if I try to do things that I shouldn't do. And down here, I've got my very own, and this is part of my stack because this is part of my application. And I called it the way. I called it application trail. Okay, cool. So let me pull up the screen real quick, make it a little larger. So I've got I gotta go back to the dashboard real quick because my session had expired. Here we go. All right. So what we do have is we've got our stack. I'm gonna save that. We've got our stack right now. And what I want to do now is do a little bit of refactoring, because right now everything is inside of this one file. And I think it gets really really noisy in here, and everything's being done down there. And once I start adding Lambda functions and actual functionality into this, it gets even more noisy. So what I'm going to do now really is just refactor a few things, and you can follow me doing that. And I'm not very proficient with Python. This is a learning experience for all of us, including myself. I'm not very proficient with Python. I did a lot of C# programming. I did a lot of Java. I did PHP in the past. I'm sorry. And I started with BASIC. I started with BASIC on the Commodore C64 many years ago. I'm not very good with Python. So if I do some blatant errors, please let me know in the chat. So this is supposed to be, as I said, a learning experience for you and for me. All right. So what I'm going to do is I will start extracting these things here, the different resources that I'm creating. I'm going to extract them into their own files. I hope that makes sense. So I've got my bucket, and that's an S3. That's an S3 bucket. Now let me see. How can we structure this? We have our stack in here, video stats, and I'm I did PHP. I'm sorry. I mean, it is a valid language for everybody who's not on YouTube. Um, it is a valid language, but it has its well. How can I say without? I mean, a third, still something like a third of the internet runs on PHP. Everybody started with Amazon started with PHP, Amazon.com. Facebook started with PHP. I think they're running it still. I'm not entirely sure, but I heard something about it. WordPress, all the WordPress applications, all the WordPress blogs, they all run on PHP, and that's totally fine. You can even write Lambda functions with PHP if you want to. I'd rather not. But you can't build CDK stacks with PHP. That does not work. You can use C#, Java, Python, TypeScript, and Go. Go is in a developer preview right now. It's going to be published. It's going to be GA pretty soon, I think. But that's what you can use. So what I'm going to do here is let us think about the structure real quick. So this is the part of my application. This is the part of my application that ingests data and everything that's necessary to ingest and process the data. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna create a new folder, and I'm gonna call it file processing. New file processing. I'll just call it file processing. There we go. And inside of file processing, I create a new file. Let's call it ingest. I'll just call it bucket.py. There we go. Now let me open that real quick, and I'm gonna add a. Now I have to cheat. I have to look at something. Give me a second. And it says you can't hear me, I guess. Let me see real quick. Yeah, so I need to cheat a little bit because, as I said, I'm not very proficient with Python. I'm still learning. So we need a class, and we're gonna call that class. I'm just gonna call it bucket. Yeah, I'm just gonna call it bucket. And this bucket has a function. And what I want to do here, let's do it real quick. What I want to do here is really say bucket is bucket dot create and give it whatever it needs to be created. So I need a create function. And inside of this create function, I want to do this. Here we go. So let me close that real quick. Here we go. So I want to remove this and put it in here. The thing here really is, first of all, I need to reference S3. So I need to do that from AWS CDK, import AWS S3 as S3. Okay, Rehan, thanks for joining. Thanks for watching. Good to see you. Hopefully next time again. All right. Sorry. I'm talking to the chat. So what I need is I need S3. And also in here, self doesn't really help me because self in this case is the scope of is the stack itself as a scope for the bucket, because the bucket construct in CDK needs a scope. So what I'm going to do here is call this scope. And over here, I'm going to say scope. I'm going to add the scope. And maybe, let's say, add the ID and call this, just call it ID. And what I'm going to do here is self data. Here we go. So does that make sense? I have a class bucket. This has a create method, which takes the scope and it takes the ID. and just creates a new S3 bucket, right? So let's see. If I run cdk diff, there should not be any changes to the actual stack definition. Oh, I've got an error, so bucket is not defined. I also have to import, and I'm gonna say from, and this is yeah. So I need my the directory name from file processing dot file processing dot bucket import. There we go. Does that work? cdk diff. This is gonna run everything. So okay, required property bucket is missing. Which is that? So let me see. This is in CloudTrail. Let me see real quick. So what is that? Required property bucket is missing. What do you mean? What do you mean? I'm not sure. In some mapping, I've got a bucket. This one. Huh. Is it this one? Let me see real quick. Let me rename that real quick because I might confuse things because I'm using this. So let me see, S3 bucket. Let's try again. And if you see the error, let me know. But that's okay. Required property bucket is missing. So that is happening in CloudTrail init. So that's somewhere down here. This one. Okay, let me remove that real quick. Oh, let me remove that real quick and see what happens. Okay, non-type object has no attribute bucket name, and this is okay. Something's off right here. I didn't expect that, but that's how it worked. I mean, non-type object has no attribute bucket name. So this is my trail. Here we go. All right, bucket name. Okay, so that means our bucket, this bucket is none. This bucket doesn't exist for whatever reason. Now let me check that real quick. I'll be right there. Oh, come on. Oh, stupid me. All right. I need to return the result. The instance of your class bucket is not a CDK bucket class. Yeah, that doesn't matter to Thorsten. Thanks. All I forgot was just return that thing. So that should be it. Let me see. Good to see you, Thorsten, by the way. Here we go. All right. Okay. It's gonna destroy bucket policy. It's gonna destroy the trail. Because I didn't save that. Okay, let's check that again. So there should be no different anymore now. Hey, Jones, good to see you. Thanks for joining. You didn't miss very much. I talked about what the actual application is going to be, because the last 2 sessions, I just built a skeleton without really going into what it does, without really having an idea of what it does. What I'm doing here today, or what the application is supposed to do, is it's supposed to process my YouTube stats. So I've got some statistics on YouTube, and I want to process them through a step function. And whenever I upload a new statistics file into a bucket, I want some downstream processing to happen. And right now we're in the middle of refactoring a little bit, because our stack itself, it's pretty noisy. There's a lot of stuff going on in here, and I'm in the process of simplifying things up here. So pushing down implementation details into different files. So, all right, there's no difference right now. Let me do a git add, git commit, bucket, move bucket into its own class. Here we go. All right. So the next thing that we're going to do is we've got our bucket, and the next thing is we need our trail. I'll create a new file, application trail.py. I'm going to import that here from file processing.application trail, import trail. Let's just call it trail. So I'm going to do that. Here we go. I'm going to add a class, trail. And this is the same thing, dev create, taking something. And down here, all I'm going to do is really say trail. So what happened to my camera now? Oh, my camera disappeared. Excuse my language, I'm about to say something not nice about this camera. It turns off all the time, and I'm pretty sure it's because my capture card is broken. So I'm really sorry. We will have to continue without a camera for now. I'm going to turn it off. Here we go. All right. And give me 1 second. All right. Okay, cool. So I'm sorry, my camera doesn't work. It's going to work. It will have to work without camera. So what I'm doing here again, I use the same pattern as here. I just have a create. So I say trail.create. And I need to give it the scope again. So let's see. Here's our trail. Create scope. Oh, not call. That's wrong. Class. Here we go. So create, and in here we need this. I'm just gonna copy it up here. So we've got our trail, which takes the scope, some stuff, and a name, scope ID. Let's use that. Self and hand it the ID. And the next thing we need to add the selector here. All right, so here we go. We've got the selector, and then we need to return the trail. Return trail. All right, before we forget that. So one important thing here is the trail. First of all, we need CloudTrail. We need to import CloudTrail. Here we go. All right, so we need CloudTrail. Then we need the scope at the ID. And down here, we need the bucket. So we need to add the actual bucket, in which I'm going to put here, ID, application trail, bucket. Okay? So we'll create the trail with the scope, with an ID, and with a bucket. I think that's it. Let's do a cdk diff. See if anything changes. No changes. All right, cool. So that works. Oh, That wasn't intended, and that works. All right, so let's do a git add git commit -m move trail into its own class. Here we go. All right, cool. So, and this can be, this can be removed. Git git add all. Just check if everything still works real quick. Yeah. Okay. Git commit. What was it? Amend. Yeah. Come on. Oh shit. Nano. Haven't used Nano. Help! I'm recording a macro. I didn't want to record a macro. Help! I'm stuck in Nano. I know how to exit. I know how to exit. I know how to exit Vim, but I have no idea how to exit Nano when I press the wrong button. Help! How to exit Nano? Control X. That's what I did, isn't it? Yeah, that's what I did. Doesn't work. Apparently, it doesn't take my. Oh shit. Apparently, it doesn't take the shortcut. Okay, can't I just Control C? No, I can't even Control C. I'm gonna close the tab. Open the terminal again. Where's my terminal? Here we go. All right. Open the terminal again. Remove that. Here we go. All right. So we need to source our virtual environment again. Inactivate. Here we go. All right. Forget it. Forget the commit. Okay, cool. And if anybody knows how to send the Control X to the Cloud9 terminal, please let me know. All right. Okay, here we go. So what do we have? We have, I'm just gonna git, let me see, git status. Yeah, git commit. So I'm not gonna amend. I'm just gonna, fix mistake. Very expressive. Very expressive. Anyway, so we've got our trail, we've got the bucket. Next, I'm gonna add my state machine. So I'm gonna use the same pattern. I'm just gonna say state machine equals state machine, but I'm gonna give it a different name because we might have multiple state machine. I'm gonna call it process put object event. And this is gonna need stuff, most likely self and the ID. So I'm just gonna call it this, and I'm gonna call it process new file. Process new file. Okay. Process new file state machine. There we go. Okay. So process new file state machine should be up here. I'm gonna do from something import process new file state machine, and I'm gonna call that file processing dot state machine. I'm gonna add a file here, new file, state machine.py. I can't type. Here we go. All right, I'm gonna open that one here. So what am I gonna do? I'm gonna create a new class. I'll call it process new file state machine. Def create. This takes a scope and an ID. Let's add an E here. Scope and ID. Here's my state machine. I'm just going to copy everything from here, put it here, and remove it because otherwise I'm going to forget it again. So let's close that here. We've got some more space. So what do we have? We need SFN. We need our step functions, which is this one. There we go. So we need step functions. We've got the scope and the ID. This is going to be scope, and this is going to be scope, and this is going to be scope. And we've got the state machine ID. There we go. Okay, cool. So the logs, I'll leave everything as it is right here. So the only thing is I need to return the whole thing. All right, cool. So I've got my state machine here. Let's do a CDK diff. Looking good, no differences. So I've moved the state machine as well. So the only thing left really is my put object rule. And I'm going to do that. Git add all git commit -m, move state machine into its own class. Okay. So I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to say from file processing dot event rule import, gonna call it put object event rule. So down here, I'm gonna say put object rule equals, oh, I forgot something. Okay. Let's look at the state machine. We've got the scope, we've got the ID. No, everything's fine. All right, good. So put object rule equals put object event rule dot create. And again, I'm giving it the scope and the ID. There we go. And I'm going to create a new file processing, new file. I called it event rule. Class, put object event rule, f create, takes a scope again and an ID. And now let's just pick all that stuff and put it in here. All right, we do need events. So we do need events, and we're probably also going to need event targets. Okay, so we've got the events. It needs to be scope. That needs to be the ID. Okay, so our targets, state machine. It needs the state machine. And the bucket, because we need the bucket name. Let's just give it the bucket. There we go. All right, so this needs the state machine, which is the state machine, and it needs the bucket. Okay, looks good. Okay, diff. And oh, I don't return it. I'm not returning it. Return. There we go. All right. Because Thorsten, you said before, that's the other way to do it, either derive from the bucket or return it. And what I didn't want to do is derive from the bucket. I just want to use this as a static method. That's basically what I want to do. It's a static method on a class, just to create the resource for me. I don't want to derive or instantiate an object or create an actual construct in here that can be used here. So good. Thanks for that anyway. So I've got an error. Process new file state machine. What's that? Takes no arguments. Process new file state machine. That's this one, isn't it? Oh, create. Dot create. There we go. Logs. Logs is not. Oh, here we go. Logs is not defined. We also need our logs. Okay, here we go. All right, cool. So we don't need all that stuff here anymore. We don't need anything except this one, right? Looking good. Okay, cool. So git add all, git commit done refactoring resource creation into separate classes. Okay, cool. So we've got that. Now let me check if my camera turns on real quick. Where is it? Here we go. I think the reason is my camera is not the camera, the capture card is overheating. And that seems to be happening very often now. I really need to get a new one. So here we go. Let me check my camera again real quick. Camera. Here we go. No, it doesn't show up. I'm sorry. No camera today. I'm really sorry about that. So let's close that again. Okay. All right, good. Let's continue without a camera. So we did the refactoring. And now with that, let's oh, there's one more thing that I wanted to check because now let's do something. We've set everything up. Yeah, we've set everything up. And what I want to do now is see if it works, if it actually works. So whenever I upload something to this bucket, I want, here we go. No, that's the wrong bucket. It's the application trails bucket. Whenever I'll upload something to this bucket, I want the step function state machine to execute. So I'm going to do that now. I'm going to upload. Where are we? Here. I have some sample data in here. So what I'm going to do now is say AWS sync, AWS S3 sync. I'm going to synchronize this folder. It's data real. Synchronize that with the bucket S3. And let's have a look at the bucket name. This is the bucket name. So there's no object in here right now. I'm going to make that a little smaller. There's no object in here right now. And I'm going to sync into that bucket. and it uploaded this file. And that's my statistics from October 31st. So let's see. If I reload this, here's the file. And if I look at the video stats application logs, which is, if you can see here, my video stats, my state machine puts it into video stats application logs. Let's have a look into that log group, video stats application logs. You can see right here, we have from 1601, that's just a minute ago, this one. So it executed, it went into the past state, it went out of the past state, and the execution succeeded. And you can see we've got tons of information in here, including the actual file that has been uploaded. Here we go, YouTube so-and-so.csv. So that's the event. And what we want to do is, instead of having this past state, we want to have an actual Lambda function that does something with the file. But before we do that, there's one thing I wanted to look into, because right now I'm not able, because usually in CloudTrail, usually in step functions, you're able to see the actual execution, and it shows you the path it went through the steps inside of the execution. And I can't see that right now, and the reason is, and I think the reason is because I only log into CloudWatch, and that may be this thing here. So what I'm gonna do now is I remove that. Oh, come on. I remove that. Let's see if it changes anything. CDK diff. So it changes the default policy. It changes some permissions. It removes the log group. It removes this policy. Yeah, and removes the dependency from the policy. So I'm going to deploy that real quick. Oh, Thorsten, that might be an interesting thing. You can only see executions for standard workflows in the UI, not express ones. That could be the reason. That could be the reason. Because I haven't tried that with Express before. I was just wondering why I couldn't see the executions, and I thought it might have to do with the way I set up logging. And because I explicitly set up logging, it doesn't do something that's needed. I'm not entirely sure. Now let's check that real quick. Yes, let's do that real quick. I'll add that again. That's a great point. Thank you. Let's add that again. I'm going to deploy this. However, I'm not going to deploy. I'm going to destroy the state machine. I'm going to destroy the state machine, and I'm going to destroy the rule because it depends on the state machine. Because an important point here is I cannot just change the state machine type from Express to standard, because it has been deployed as an Express state machine, and that can't be changed. So I really have to destroy it, delete the resource, and create a new one. And that's what I'm going to do here. So I'm going to remove the state machine. I'm going to remove the rule because it depends on the state machine. Let's deploy that real quick. And let's try that. That would be a nice learning. I didn't know that. I was simply wondering why I couldn't see it. Because with the executions, it shows you in a really nice way the route through your state machine, and at every step you can see what was the input, what was the output. Thorsten says that sounds like a bug in CloudFormation. It should do a replacement. You mean when I change the type of a state machine, of a step function state machine? Yes, because what I figured out is when I just changed the type, I don't even get an error. So CloudFormation tells me the deployment was successful, but it didn't change anything. So um, what I have in the template, the new type of state machine, is not reflected in the actual deployment. So that does indeed sound like a bug in CloudFormation. And now that you say it, I'm just going to quickly write that down because that is something that I could relay back to the team. Step functions type modification in CloudFormation. Good point. Thank you so much. So it's deleting the state machine right now. It's going to delete the rule, but it's not going to delete the log group because that has a retain. I'm pretty sure it does. It's being retained when the resource is deleted. I'll just leave it at that for now. It just takes a second. And while that is running, oh no, it's done. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. That's a good point. All right. Okay, so this has been deployed, and now I'm going to change the state. Oh, now I'm going to change the state machine. I'm just going to remove this because in that case, it is being deployed as a standard state machine. Save. Add it again. CDK deploy. Because you're right, Thorsten, there should either be a conflict and CloudFormation should roll back because it's not able to change the type, or it should actually destroy and redeploy the resource. But what it does now is it does the deployment, but it doesn't do the change, and that really does sound like a bug. Yes, I want to deploy the permission changes. And this is going to take another minute. And while this is running, I'm going to try and set up my camera again real quick. Just 1 second. There we go.